Hi, I said there'd be a part 2 to the council tax video. We've got some interesting developments. Like I said in the previous video, one of the most important things to do is provide no details if bailiffs accompanied by police officers turn up at your front door. As I said before, if you've got a back door that's away from the front door and preferably through a gate like I'm lucky enough to have, come out through the back and talk to them. A few things have come to mind in the last few months with regards to council tax. And we've had an interesting development because before, all of our letters came in these wonderful white envelopes, and in the little window is the address, my name, and followed by my wife's maiden name, which is a bit funny. The other interesting factor is we moved into this house about a year ago, and the property we were renting prior to that, the council tax was in my name. And when we moved into this property, which is bought, my wife took on the council tax. Now, originally I did have a council tax debt with the previous council, and there was mitigation and a reason for that, which was the fact that I'd been forced into a situation where I'd been quite ill. I'd injured myself at work. We were forced off benefits. We lost our council tax benefit, and we were on the verge of going under financially. And luckily we had family that kind of helped us out. And I know everybody doesn't have that. I get that. But what's interesting is that we're now getting these bills from our new council with both my wife's and my name. And interesting, my name leading. Don't have to read anything into that or not. But there. Now we've got to the great bit, because now we're being sent these. We've had 2 of these now. And basically this says to the occupier, or as I like to call him, Theo Supia, with the address. Basically, this letter's got, do not ignore this envelope. So we won't. So we'll open one, sent Priestley. And what's inside this is this. Every household must respond to this letter as soon as possible. And basically what this letter is, it is updating the details of the electoral register. When you start getting this letter, you're in the position of the council aren't 100% sure who lives in this property. Now, dealing with council tax, this is the first and most important thing I would say. As said in the previous video, do not, under any circumstances, give any details outside your property. As I've said in previous videos, if the police are there, ask them why they're there. They're going to tell you, we're here to prevent a breach of the peace. So you peacefully resist. You say, you're not coming in my house, because a bailiff cannot break into your property. Cannot. End of story. They're not allowed to do that. Don't give any details. Don't take hold of any paperwork. If you want to see the paper, don't touch it, video record it. Other thing, second point, always record the event. And if there's 2 of you or your partner, get her to do it, him to do it, whoever. Now, there's an interesting fact with council tax. It's the fact that it comes under what's called the Local Authority Finance Act 1992. There were some amendments made in 2000, I believe. But fundamentally, stated within that act is that council tax is a civil debt. It's a civil debt. Now, something that's come out recently is that lots of councils are now basically hiring magistrates' courts and they're printing their own liability orders. That to me would say the most important thing is do not attempt to fight this in court, because you will lose. Absolutely, because the council are in cahoots with the courts. End of story. You will not win. However, a good way around it is to get to this point where the council don't necessarily know who's living in the property, which is why they do this. Another reason they do this is once I've filled out this piece of paper and put my details on it and my signature, one of the most powerful things that you possess, you've technically entered into a form of contract with them, and they can prove joinder, which is the start of the process. There's another interesting fact that the Local Authority Finance Act, and I can't remember whether this was 1992 or whether it was part of the 2000 amendments, there's a section called 13A, which basically what 13A does is states reasons where you can contest your council tax. This is what I would advise you do. You write to billing at your local authority and you make reference to 13A of the Local Authority Finance Act, and you make a list of reasons why you're withholding payment of your council tax. What I would advise, put in bold capitals at the top of the letter, you are not refusing to pay. What you're doing is you're withholding that payment and you want to negotiate based on these lists of issues that you have with the council. And think about it logically. For me, for example, we live in a particular borough. Our children don't go to school in this borough. We've had no end of problems with just getting our bins emptied. We had an issue when we first moved in where we were being harassed by a neighbour further up the street, and there was a systematic pattern of evidence where the police agreed it was harassment, but they did nothing. So what am I paying for? You know, I live in an area where if you get burgled now, police don't even come out, unless you can categorically prove there might be a bit of evidence. It's potentially where my views changed a little bit, because I did say in the last video that, you know, I didn't want to give people excuses not to pay their bills. But actually, I'm starting to believe, from my own personal opinion, that the council tax is a scam. If you ask any of your councils under a Freedom of Information request to a breakdown of their accounts, they won't give it you. You can spend however long writing civil letter after civil letter after civil letter. They won't give you that information. So that's part of your justification, the 13A. I want to know where my money's going. I'm not happy about this, I'm not happy about that, I'm not happy about the other. One of my personal reasons at the minute is looking at the rape scandal that we've seen across multiple local authorities from north to south, and the excuses that those councils have made, particularly via chief executives, particularly via the heads of social services. That's one of my reasons, that we're paying council tax and you can't even keep our children safe. No, you don't deserve that money. The fact of the matter is that we are so heavily taxed on everything. You know, and I had a guy from the council say to me, well, you know, what about the upkeep of the roads? I said, well, I thought that's what I paid fucking car tax for. The £400–500 a year that I'm paying in car tax for the various vehicles that I use for myself and my self-employed business. More people need to make a stand, because my fundamental principle and what I want to give people the tools to do is to challenge the bailiffs, who are, quite frankly, as I've said before, they're a stone's throw away from a paedophile in my book. They are making the king's ransom by bullying and targeting the poorest and most vulnerable in society. When I see the suicide rates, the postgraduate suicide rates across the board have skyrocketed in the last 10 years. People are struggling. We've got food banks, and then these wankers think they can turn up and bully people and take your possessions that you've worked hard for, pay you a pittance for them, and then still leave you with a shitty massive bill that they're going to try and drag you to court for. Well, you know what? Nah. Fuck that. It stops. Once you get to this point, you can go down the route of video it right on the bottom, recorded for fraud purposes, because there is a growing amount of evidence that says that these are fraudulent, that the way that council tax and councils are behaving is fraudulent, because fundamentally council tax is a civil matter. If I went out, I'm a mobile mechanic, I went and did a job for a customer and they refused to pay me, would the police come with me to that customer's house to assist in getting my money back? No, they wouldn't. So what the shit in hell are they doing with bailiffs, who are private companies, let's not forget, to have my property? There's another interesting one, and I've not got the letter here to show you, but I'll be able to explain it fairly easily. They're sending out these ANPR letters where they're basically saying if they see your vehicle, they're going to report to such and such. Again, it's bullshit. It's just scare tactics. But it's the bullying aspect that these organisations are trying. Where is all this money going? You know, you look at chief executives, you look at various high management positions within councils. These guys are earning 30, 40, 50, 60, £100,000 a year. They're getting gilt-edged gold pensions, final salary. And actually, do I think that the services in the area that I live, and I'm sure the area where you live, is it value for money? Do you think it's value for money? When these guys, you know, the head of councils are sitting on £100,000 a year salaries? And they can't even do the decent thing to give you a breakdown of their accounts, show you where all this money's going. You know, we've seen council services cut for the last nearly 10 years. And people need to make a stand. But what I will say is don't even go down the court route. Avoid that as much as possible. But do talk to the council. Write to them. Use section 13A. Explain why you think you shouldn't pay your council tax, or why it should be significantly reduced. Make you know, for most people the list won't be exhaustive. List it out. Send it. Don't use it. Well, just put your first name, put your address, your first name. Don't sign it. Just type, you know, yours faithfully, Joe, Paul, Chris, whoever you might be, and send it in. And explain the reasons why you don't want to pay. But the most important thing is to send something that does clearly state you are not refusing to pay, you're withholding payment for these reasons. Then you're in a position, you're in dispute. So when a bailiff turns up here demanding money, you can legitimately say, well, I'm in dispute with the council. You know, it's an ongoing dispute. It's got nothing to do with you. Another important thing to point out to the bailiff is, you say to the individual, I've never agreed to contract with you. I've never agreed to have any form of contract with your company. Never spoke to them. Third thing to point is, I never gave my authority for my personal details or the personal details to be passed to any other third party. So you can't be looking for me, because I've never given authority for those details to be passed to you. Never give your details. The most important thing. Never give name, date of birth. First names is fine. Surnames, date of birth, anything that formally identifies you, do not give it. It's down to them. I've said in the previous video how to deal with the police. Remain calm, polite, peacefully resist. You're not coming into my home. Talk to the police. Explain the things that I've said before about their oath. Why are they there? Are they acting impartially? You know, why are they involved in a civil matter? Record everything. But just, if anything, this situation, particularly with these two letters, has taught me how the system works. Even more so than I already knew. If you just keep ignoring those letters, and then once you get the occupier one, then they're at a point they don't know who you are. Then send your letter to the billing section of your local authority under section 13A of the Local Authority Finance Act 1992, revisions 2000. These are the reasons I'm withholding payment of my council tax. But like I say, the most important thing, bold capital letters at the top, we are not refusing to pay our council tax. We are in dispute and we are withholding payment for these reasons. And list them. I guarantee you, when you start thinking about it, there'll be a huge amount of things that you can be in dispute for your council for. Think about what council services you actually use. But then the other thing is, it becomes about a position of morality. I'm now refusing to pay my council tax because they let down the most vulnerable in society, from the scandals we've had with care homes to the scandal we've had nationally with the rape gangs targeting the most vulnerable of children in our society. Until the local authorities stand up and give an apology and a reason for that disgraceful conduct, as far as I'm concerned, they can whistle for their money. Remember, keep calm, talk peacefully on the door, and don't try and fight this one in court. Fight it the smart way. Take care, guys.